Hello, book friends, and welcome to the Mid-Year Freakout Book Tag of 2023. It's June already, and that means that half the year has already gone by. So I was tagged by Tilly's Shelf, thank you for the tag, to make my own mid-year freakout booktube video for 2023. And I will tag her down below. I'm also going to tag a few more booktubers who are just starting out and give them a little bit of support. So I would encourage you to also click the profile links down below and give them a little bit of love too. The first question is, what is the best book that you've read so far in 2023? And just like a lot of these questions, I don't have just one single answer, so I'm going to just tell you my top favorites. Mistborn. So this is my very first Brandon Sanderson read, and I was not disappointed, and I cannot wait to read more by him. He is definitely worth the hype. So Mistborn is one of my top reads. The next one is one that I just finished, Ali Hazelwood's Love Theoretically. All of her STEM romances I highly, highly recommend. One of the subjects that I teach is science, and so I am really excited when women and girls are excited about math and science. And so all of these STEM romances kind of just fit into that little pocket of mine very nicely. This was not my favorite in the STEM romances, but it is one of my favorite reads of 2023 so far. And my last one, I don't have the book, but I do have the book jacket. And this is The Sunbear Trials by Aidan Thomas. He also wrote Cemetery Boys. This has a lot of wonderful trans representation, and it's a competition, so sort of like the Hunger Games. And I would highly recommend this book. I love this book, and there is a sequel coming out fairly soon. Best sequel. I just finished this one last night. This is Down Among the Sticks and Bones by, I'm not sure how to say this, Shanann McGuire. This is the sequel to Every Heart a Doorway. Hey, I just got an Amazon package dropped off. It's a bookshelf, just in case you were wondering. So this is the sequel to Every Heart a Doorway, which is part of the Wayward Children series. I think there's like 9 books in this series, but they're very thin. I read this in like 2 sittings. The next question is a book that's a new release in 2023 that I haven't read yet, but that I want to read. And that's going to be Emily Henry's The Happy Place. I've heard a lot of great things about it, and I want to read a lot more Emily Henry. I've only read one thing by her so far, and I've really loved it. Plus, this cover is amazing. I love the color. It's going to look really good on my shelf. What is my most anticipated release for the second half of 2023? So obviously, this is probably going to be a lot of people's answers, but Iron Flame, which is the sequel to The Fourth Wing. Obviously, you've heard a lot of buzz around that. They just released the cover. It's gorgeous. And also, I'm looking forward to, what's it called? I forgot. Bookshops and Bone Dust by Travis Baldree. And that is the sequel, which is actually a prequel chronologically, but it's coming out afterwards. So it's kind of a prequel to Legends and Lattes. The biggest surprise so far in 2023 is Lauren Asher's The Fine Print. And the reason is because I really like rom-coms, but I tend to not like romance very much. The Fine Print is sort of like, it's set in a setting that's sort of like Disney World, but it's called something else, and I'm a huge Disney adult, and so I was really excited to read it, and I really, really liked it. I was surprised that I liked it. However, the other 2 in the series were just meh. My favorite new author of 2023, again, I have 2 for that. Brandon Sanderson is the first one. And then the next one is Carissa Broadbent. This is the only book I've read by her so far, but I have some other ones on my shelf. And this is an amazing book. And it definitely is for fans if you like Sarah J. Maas. But it's got vampires, and so this is really cool, and I can't wait to see what happens next. She's got a lot of other books in this world slated for future releases. Newest fictional crush. This was actually kind of hard because I don't really have fictional crushes, but both of the ones that I can think of, they both came from Mistborn. So before I even read this, I looked up some fan art, and it was actually some fan casting, because this is going to be a movie or a show or something like that. I'm not sure exactly. And Charlie, I don't remember what his last name is, but he played Jax Teller in Sons of Anarchy. He was fan cast as Kelsier. So that was in my head for the whole time that I was reading this book. And I just think that he's very handsome. So physically, that is one of my new crushes. However, Elend, he is also a character in Mistborn. And I felt very drawn to him because he would bring books to all of the social occasions, all the balls and parties, and he would just kind of sit in the corner and like try to find a dark place and read to himself. And I feel like that's what I want to do a lot of the times when I'm in social situations that I don't want to be in. However, I've only read this book. I've only read the first one. So I don't know. Maybe this is going to be like a Tamlin situation in ACOTAR where, you know, I really like him now, but I shouldn't. Maybe something's going to happen that's going to change my mind. But as of right now, Elend, he is my newest crush of 2023. My newest favorite character is actually two characters, but they kind of go together. So I started to read Terry Pratchett's Discworld series. I've only read the first one so far. It's pretty short. This is, I think, categorized as humorous fantasy. And the two main characters, Rincewind and Twoflower, I can't really tell you a whole lot about it without giving it away, but they just feed off of each other. There's a lot of comedic moments in this, and they're so cute. And again, I looked up some fan art and just fell in love with them. And they're basically like, Twoflower is like the first tourist on Discworld, and Rincewind is his guide, sort of, and they kind of get into some trouble. And I have the second one of this ready to read soon. The next question is a book that made you cry. Books don't generally make me cry. Deaths don't make me cry. But one book that I did listen to on audio this year was Regretting You by Colleen Hoover. And it's one of my favorite Colleen Hoover books. I do like to listen to her on audio because it's just kind of easier. The writing is easier to follow. And I listen to it when I'm driving. But Regretting You, the last like 10%, I was driving and listening to it, and I literally laughed out loud, which never happens. I laughed out loud, and then like 2 minutes later, I was crying. But the reason I was crying was because of a happy situation. It was a good cry. And that's really the only book in a long time that's made me cry. All right, so the next one is books that have made me happy, and I have two for that one as well. I am a language arts teacher at my middle school. I know I said I teach science, but I teach both. I teach a lot of stuff. And so last school year, I did an author study with my class, and we did an in-depth look at Ray Bradbury. And so we mostly just read a bunch of his short stories, but while we were reading that, while I was teaching that, I went out and picked up the Martian Chronicles. And let me tell you what, this is like a bunch of short stories that are written together over a span of many, many years. And it revolves around, there's a lot of wars on Earth, so we have inhabited Mars. And there are a couple of stories I still think about, I still talk about, and they just made me laugh and feel so good. And I just cannot recommend Ray Bradbury's The Martian Chronicles enough. The second book that really made me happy is one that I read on my Kindle. It's on Kindle Unlimited, and it is the Monk and the Robot series. The first one is the Psalm for the Wild Built, and it's by Becky Chambers. And it's basically this friendship. There's really not a huge plot to it. It is just very character driven. The two main characters are a tea monk. He basically has like this house on a bicycle, and he pedals around to different villages and gives people tea and listens to their problems. He's sort of like a bartender, but he travels and he sells tea instead. And he meets up in the forest with this robot, and they strike up a friendship, and they travel around together, and they learn about each other. And it was so heartwarming, and I just felt myself smiling. And it's definitely a cozy fantasy. And I think that it's just something that everybody should read if they want to be happy and if they want to smile. The most beautiful book that you have bought or that you have received this year, both of these I bought for myself. The first one is Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. And yes, the cover is pretty, but this is what really makes it stand out. So I have a lot of books. I read a lot of books. I buy a lot of books, but I do not buy any books that are special edition or have sprayed edges, especially if I already have the book on my shelf. I'm not one to just own multiple copies of a book. So I was super excited when this came out, and this was the first edition, and it had the sprayed edges, and they're dragons, and I love dragons. And so this is the first one. And then the second one that is beautiful is The Serpent and the Wings of Night. Actually, all the Carissa Broadbent books are beautiful, but it's kind of hard to see, but it kind of shimmers a little bit. And it's matte, and I don't know. I enjoy looking at this book. Okay, so I have a lot to say about this next one. The next one is Your Biggest Disappointment. I love fantasy, and I read out loud to my class every day. And so I was looking for a new book to read to them next school year. And I had seen a lot of people recently talking about Howl's Moving Castle. And, you know, cozy fantasy is really popular now. And I think that that's why that sort of started to come up, because it's definitely not a new book. And it's a movie. And it's like, I think it's anime. So I thought, hey, let me read it. And if I like it, then I'll read it to them and we can watch the movie together and we can have some discussions. However, I read it. I was so bored. I was so confused. I did not understand what was going on at all. And then my stepson said, oh, well, the movie's a whole lot better. So we watched the movie together. Same thing. I fell asleep. And then when I woke up, I still had no idea what was going on. Not because I fell asleep. I was paying attention at this point. But it was just, I don't know. I was very disappointed. It's definitely a book that I thought I was going to love a whole lot more than I did. And one that I was going to be able to share with my students. And needless to say, I was disappointed. Okay, last question, I think. What books do you need to finish by the end of the year? Mostly, I just have some series that I want to finish so that I can start a new series. This is one that I really am drawn to read every single time it's time for me to pick up a new book. It's the latest in the Outlander series, Go Tell the Bees That I Am Gone. And it's a chunker. It's going to take me a little bit to get through it, but I don't want this to be over. I'm watching the newest season of Outlander right now, and I'm loving it. And I think that I'm just putting this off because then I'm not going to have any new Outlanders on my shelf to read, and that's going to make me sad. I also want to read some more Emily Henry this year. I've only read one by her. Let's see, other series that I have, the Cruel Prince series. I just finished The Wicked King 2 days ago, so I want to finish that one up. I want to finish the released Carissa Broadbent books. And the other book that I really would like to read in 2023, I don't know if I'm going to get around to it or not though, is Priory of the Orange Tree. That one's been on my shelf for a while and it's beautiful. And I'm waiting to buy the next one in the series until I read the first one. And I think that the size, you know, it's a really thick book. It's kind of turning me off too. I'm not sure. So, but anyways, I have a lot of books that I want to read in 2023 and I'm a mood reader. So I could have a whole list of books that I want to read and not get to them. So we kind of just read what we feel like reading when we feel like reading it. Anyways, thank you for listening to me and comment below if you have any suggestions. I would love to hear your thoughts on any of the books that I talked about, or if you have anything that you want to recommend to me. And here's to happy reading in the next 6 months of 2023.